From the document, Cyril the philosopher of Cappadocia, the forgotten creator of the Cyrillic alphabet, Petko Dobrev, Silistra, we read. The opinion is imposed that Constantine and Methodius invented the Glagolitic alphabet for the Slavs, and their students imposed the Cyrillic alphabet in Bulgaria. As a continuation, they created the Slavic literary language, based on the Old Bulgarian language, which the disappearing Proto-Bulgarians used, etc. These claims are essentially historical manipulations. A little later we read, using the information in the Bulgarian apocryphal chronicle, it can be concluded that the settlement of Bulgarians in the Balkans began on the orders of Emperor Zeno in 486. Crossing the Danube to Belgrade, the Bulgarians reached Noi, and from there continued to Thessaloniki. The territory from Belgrade to Thessaloniki was the first Bulgarian land in the Balkans, which was called Kharvoon. It is no coincidence that Basil II, Bulgar slayer, called this administrative region Bulgaria. Lower on the first page, the clergyman who performed the baptism of the Bulgarians in 703 was Cyril the philosopher of Cappadocia, who himself testified to this in his word of Cyril the philosopher on how he baptized the Bulgarians. From all of that, we can conclude that the Cyril, the philosopher, baptized the Bulgarians and created Cyrillic alphabet in 703 years. Petko Dobrev also exposed the falsification that the story was from Solon city. The story goes lower on the document. When I was in the church of the great Patriarchate of Alexandria, I heard a voice addressed to me from the altar saying to me, Cyril, Cyril, go to the vast land, and among the peoples, called Bulgarians. For God has appointed you to baptize them. Give them a law. I was very sad, because I did not know where the Bulgarian land was located. So apparently Cyril was guided by someone, perhaps a clergyman, but the story says God, in order to create the alphabet and baptize Bulgarians. Here's good to mention that the Goth or Philo was also from Cappadocia, and perhaps Cyrillic alphabet was influenced from the Gothic alphabet. Also the Goth or Phila translated Gospels and books used for early Christian churches by the Goths. So the story seems to repeat. We can also read the way he was lied by the Greeks, later in the document. Go to the city of Thessaloniki. And I went and appeared before Metropolitan John. And when I told him, he laughed at me and said to me, Oh, you foolish old man, the Bulgarians are cannibals, and they will eat you. And on the next paga we can read, all the Bulgarian princes gathered around Thessaloniki and fought against Thessaloniki for 3 years, shedding much blood. And they said, Give us the man whom God has sent to us. Then they gave me. The Bulgarians took me within great joy, and took me to the city of Raven, on the Bregalnica River. I created 32 letters for them. The Cyrillic alphabet has 32 letters, so that is genuine. Later we have the obvious conclusion made by Petko Dobrev. From the presented content of the cited source, it is clear that the cleric, who first baptized us in 703, and is the creator of our alphabet, was born in Cappadocia. He studied in Damascus. Then he was in the church of the Patriarchate of Alexandria. At that time, it should be noted that both Damascus and Alexandria were part of the Umayyad Caliphate. The caliph was Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan. Byzantium was ruled by Tiberius III Apsamar, but he had no power over the territories controlled by the Patriarchate of Antioch and Alexandria. It is possible that the Patriarch of Alexandria, in order to expand his influence, charged Cyril with the task of trying to convert the Bulgarians. On the third page, we can even understand how Greeks prevented that from happening. They captured Cyril, and do not let him go to Bulgarian territory. And we can read about a 3-year war also, like so. When the Bulgarians learned that Cyril had been captured, led by their princes, they gathered around Thessaloniki, and waged a 3-year war, and much blood was shed. It is logical to assume that this 3-year war is proof that the captured Cyril, the philosopher, was of particular importance to the Bulgarians. And it was no coincidence that they put their request before the Greeks to give them the man whom God had sent them. Thus, after 3 years of war, the Bulgarians managed to free Cyril, the philosopher, from captivity, and with great joy take him to the city of Raven on the Glagolitic river. Where was this city located? The prevailing opinion is that it was located in the area where the Zlatovica river flows into the Glagolitic river, not far from the present-day village of Krupishte, North Macedonia. In the city of Raven, Cyril the philosopher created 32 letters for the Bulgarians. Here he taught the Bulgarians little, and they themselves achieved a lot. And the Bulgarians achieved so much that, according to Cyril, the Lord himself said that the Bulgarians would transmit to the people the Orthodox faith and Christianity, as God had ordained them. In other words, it can be said that the Bulgarians would have to revise the Christianity already canonized by the church councils. What did this historical task set before the Bulgarians in 703 look like to begin to revise church dogmas at that time? Was tantamount to a real war with Rome and Constantinople. The Bulgarians baptized in 703 by Cyril the philosopher, and their successors would remain known as Bogomils. So, my friends, the Bogomils was the problem for the church, and that is what they hide from all of us. Shame on you. Here we can see where was the city Raven mentioned in the document. It is near the village of Krupishte, North Macedonia. And that is how the Cyrillic alphabet was created. Please like and subscribe, also share. Using the document, Bulgaria in World History and Civilizations, Spirit and Culture collection of reports from the conference of the same name Varna. 2018, we can even learn what happened and why it was hidden. On the page 251, we get the truth. On page 251 and 252, we can get the truth about hiding the origin of the Cyrillic alphabet. This alphabet was called Cyrillic after the name of its creator. We still use this alphabet today. Our official historiography continues to claim that the Bulgarians use an alphabet created by True and Strahota, whom the Romans know as Constantine Cyril, the philosopher, and Methodius. The Bulgarians who, despite the imposition of Byzantine Christianity during the time of Boris, continued to profess the Christianity adopted in 703, were later called Bogomils. Bogomilism was always persecuted by Byzantium and Rome, and by the churches controlled by them. The last Bogomils were literally exterminated by the Greek finalized after 1776. The struggle of the Greeks against Bogomilism continued fiercely during the Ottoman period, when the Greek Church had complete freedom of action in the Ottoman Empire. It is no coincidence that they used the support of Janissaries in their initiations.